greatest concert day for me would have had to been one of the Ozfests.
Yeah, you can see that.
Pretty good stuff.
I can definitely see that.
When you get to see like Tool, Pantera, and Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Like the originals Black Sabbath.
Just to see Geezer.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend went and saw... I think they saw us. It wasn't Sabbath at that time, but they went early on. And he said Ozzy only throws like one bucket of water out to everybody, but it hit him, and he was like, I was baptized. I was like, that's fucking cool, man. Fuck yeah.
So, true story, Springfield, Illinois, Ozzy Osbourne was kicked out of that town. He couldn't come back there.
Really?
Yeah. I don't remember the story.
Like the Alamo?
Yeah, he did something where he couldn't come back anymore.
That's Ozzy Osbourne for you.
That Ozzy Osbourne, that crazy guy.
That crazy, drugged up son of a bitch. Okay, let me turn this up. Alright, you ready to get started?
Sure.
This one's going to be an easy one, I think.
I think so.
It's going to be a good conversation about a badass band.
Hello, I'm Madonna. As you can see, I'm pregnant. I would like to say hello to my friend Kurt Loder because he loves me so much. Everything I do is wonderful. I can't do no wrong. Hi, Kurt. I'm Scott Wilan. I sing for a band sometimes called STP. We're a rock and roll band, not necessarily alternative enough. I also have made my first solo album and a video called Barbarella, first single. I have to say that Scott Wilan stole this concept from Man Who Fell to Earth. Who doesn't know it?
Now what?
Quite good.
Attack warning.
Attack warning? Is it for real? Attack warning? It's for bloody real.
Live from Colorado Springs, the Drop Culture Podcast.
I want to confirm, is this an exercise? Roger, copy. This is not an exercise.
Come on, quick, get down! 1, 2, 3!
Welcome, everybody, to the Dropped Culture Podcast. I'm Dan.
I'm Brock.
And we're going to dig into a little band you may have heard of. Mighty Joe Young. No. Sweet. No. We're going to talk about the Stone Temple Pilots tonight. What do you think about the Stone Temple Pilots there, Brock?
I think, as far as a band goes, there's only one other core band. See what I did there?
I did. I was getting ready to say something.
That is better than them, and that's Booker T and the MGs.
Okay.
I would say that technically you could put anybody in front of Stone Temple Pilots, and they could do whatever. You know what I mean? Okay. Solid drums from Eric Kretz. The bass, Jesus Christ, Robert DeLeo is one of the most talented, if not most melodic and badass bassists ever. And
he's really good. I agree with that.
Yeah, and his brother Dean.
Yeah,
Dean DeLeo. And now, at the very beginning, you had Scott Wilan, which was he probably technically had one of the best voices of all time.
Definitely, if not of all time, definitely of that era for sure. But I would think there would be an argument for all time, sure.
Oh yeah, I put him up there.
Yeah, 100%.
You definitely think Lane Staley, for the Lane Staley and Kurt Cobain and Eddie Vedder. You know, those names come to mind when you think of 90s rock and roll. or grunge rock, or whatever they wanted to call themselves at that point. But Scott Wilan was...
Oh, dude, he was awesome.
The power that dude had.
Not power, but could also be melodic.
Yes.
You know?
He just... I mean, he could do whatever he wanted to. Whenever he went through his Doors phase, was awesome. He could do that.
Yeah.
He could sing in not necessarily... He didn't sound like Jim Morrison.
Oh, no.
But he could sing and make you feel like Jim Morrison, like it was his song.
Yeah.
Yes, it was like his song.
Right.
Whenever he sang Dancing Days. It was like their song.
Yeah. Even though it's like one of the most straight covers.
Mm-hmm. And that's the best part about that song.
Yeah.
They didn't really F up too much, They didn't change everything like... Devo doing Are You Experienced? You know what I mean? Cool. Get it. But it wasn't like what they did.
Right. 100%.
And I would have to say they own that song now.
Oh, I don't know about that. I like the original.
I think so. I like the original, but when I listen to this STP version, I'm like, damn.
I mean, that's what's probably more common in my playlist, but I like them both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I think you can I put on the STP version for people who think that it's Zeppelin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 100%. Like, and if it's out of the blue, you don't know. I mean, it sounds, the music's the same. The
Everything.
Voice, yeah, absolutely.
And if you think, I mean, two of the biggest singers of that time period, or at least in that 10-year period that they had there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you got Jim Morrison, which he died in, 72? And then you had Zeppelin, that was at about that same time. So you got Robert Plant and you got Jim Morrison. But yet, somebody of Scott Weiland's caliber can hold his own against him.
And I agree. Like earlier you said, you can put anybody in front of this band and play. I agree. But Scott Weiland was the magic.
Yeah.
That made that. I'm not saying taking anything away from the band members.
No.
But Weiland as a lyricist and a singer, and just the way he conveyed himself was insane, dude.
Yeah.
And what's really crazy, and I know we'll probably get into this, they were really critically panned when they first came out.
Yeah. They started in San Diego.
Yes.
And everybody else was up north in Seattle. So they got labeled a ripoff band.
Well, I'm not even... Yeah, I mean, even once they hit... Like, Rolling Stone, said, really butchered them, like the worst whatever, But in that same poll, the fans voted them the #1 new rock band.
Right.
So I'm going to go back to a thing that I always have said my entire life, which is fuck critics.
Yeah.
Just saying. And I know we critique things to some degree on our show as well, but not to... We don't ever inhibit on someone's vision or someone else's enjoyment. That's all I'm going to say. Unless it's Batman and Robin.
Yeah. The only other band that was thought of that way by critics was Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin was hated by the critics. They were hated by Rolling Stone. It took until, oh my God, until like the mid 90s. That Led Zeppelin by Rolling Stone was looked at it a different way.
Yeah.
And of course, Rolling Stone is one of the music mags that kind of has lasted the years, but now it's a corporate rock buyout.
Yeah. Well, even Billy Corrigan from Smashing Pumpkins, he laid into them, was saying they were weak shit and a rip off, basically. But after Tiny Music came out, he wrote them an apology letter, or at least individually apologized to them all, I think, at some point. There was a big deal about it that he spoke about.
Well, they definitely...
Because he even owned that. He's like, I was way too hard on them, and I didn't realize, blah, 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 blah. So at least he owned it.
Yeah.
But I really feel like Billy Corrigan in the 90s was kind of a douchebag.
Yeah,
That's
he
all
was
I'm
an
saying.
asshole.
Yeah.
But they had... Smashing Pumpkins really did have some great stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
They went meteor status, and then they kind of burned in the atmosphere for a little while.
Yeah.
Which of course, it was all Corrigan.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm not
destroying a
saying
lot of
anything
stuff.
about him as a musician. I mean, I think I love some Smashing. There's a couple good albums out there, starting with Gish, really.
Oh, Gish is like my favorite one
Nice.
of theirs. But STP...
Yeah, which is the band we're talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But what I'm going to say about them, I've said about... And I said this about Fogerty on the CCR episode that we did. They took the lessons from the past. They kind of jumbled it all up, right? They took what they like and what they could do. And I think that happens a lot, and I'll explain that here in a second. And they came out with this hard rockin', just in your face kind of a sound. It was a freight train when you listen to Core.
Oh, 100%.
It hit you harder and faster than anything you'd heard it before that point. It didn't start out slow. It was like in your face.
And in a different way, you know?
Yes.
It wasn't metal.
No.
You know?
No, it wasn't heavy metal. It wasn't cock rock.
Right.
It wasn't grunge rock. It was its own beast.
It was if there's a genre, it's hard rock. You know what
That's
I mean?
it. Yeah. They took those lessons.
I find those to be different things than what like corporate hard rock places think are actually hard rock.
Well, and like I said, they took the lessons from the 70s, what they grew up listening to,
Sure.
the late 60s, early 70s, the 70s. So they had the love for the Carpenters. They had the love for Dr. Hook, probably. You know, they had such a great foundation for each one of them. And
Well, didn't Robert DeLeo and Wilan meet at a Black Flag concert?
think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the legend, but yeah.
That's what they said in one of the interviews.
Yeah.
DeLeo did.
Mhm.
I think that Wilan had a little bit of a different story, but apparently they had the same girlfriend. They found out, like when they were talking about their girlfriends or something.
Yeah, and then they kind of got together. But
Yeah.
I've
Whether
read
that's true or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I read Wilan's biography. I had to, and it's pretty sad because his upbringing, from what I remember out of the book, and this is not paraphrasing, he went through a lot of shit whenever he was younger. And he was raped by some dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some like older jock, Trans Am dude. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's how he put it. He's like, dude, I was raped. That's what he says in the actual book. So he kept falling into alcohol and drugs, and because of everything that he had happened to him. And he, again, you take a look at the lead singers in a lot of really great bands, a lot of tragedy, a lot of heartache, a lot of everything. Everything pours out of them.
Right.
Everything comes out in this weird amalgam of just, it's the right time,
Right.
And Wilan didn't really, he lived for a long time.
Yeah.
He was alive for a really, really long time.
Well, not like a long time in the span of normal human life.
Yes.
But he was around longer than people think. He wasn't one of the guys, he wasn't like a Shannon Hoon.
He wasn't 27.
Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't
you know
part of
what
the
I mean?
27
Even
club.
part of
Yeah.
those, like, he wasn't a Lane Staley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
I really think that this band, they should have stopped, after Tiny Music.
I'll agree with that. Number 4 is definitely not one that's ever in my rotation.
Not all the time, but it's got some great songs.
It's good.
And I like, there's just, it was part of the new metal,
Yeah.
and they got lumped into that, even though they'd been doing stuff like that, but it kind of came out that way.
Yeah.
But still, it was a standalone sound.
Oh, 100%.
Their sound has always been standalone. I liked the Chester Bennington stuff.
Sure.
I thought that little EP was pretty bitchin'.
Didn't he do, is that all he did with them, was an EP? For some reason, I thought he did a full album with them.
Nah, it was the EP because Robert Patrick from Filter
That's
did
right.
Army of Anyone with them.
That's right.
And again, Robert Patrick on that record was awesome. Fit them very well.
Yeah, 100%.
And I love Filter. They used to be one of my absolute favorites too. Yeah. Still, I can probably sing every song on Short Bus. I don't know why. At any time, because I loved Filter. But Stone Temple Pilots was my introduction into what I would call my own music. You know,
I agree with that 100%. And I will tell just a quick tale. The first time I ever heard Stone Temple Pilots, I was at a buddy's house, and I saw 2 videos for the very first time, and it was like mind-wrecking. And it was Sex Type Thing and Soundgarden, off Bad Motorfinger, Outshined.
Oh, yeah.
Outshined. And I was like, I saw both those videos, like, not right in a row, but like pretty damn close. And I was like, my whole life just changed again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was. And then the next album that they both came out with, it was Black Hole Sun, and then it was Interstate Love Song.
Yeah.
So they kind of were, you know, neck and neck when it came to that. And Soundgarden has their own sound too.
I feel like Soundgarden had broken a little earlier, but their albums weren't as popular as like either of those albums were.
No, Soundgarden they laid the foundation for like Pearl Jam and, you know, everybody else.
Well, I think they helped break open that sound. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the sound, but the scene.
They were one of the first people to actually sign with a major label, weren't they? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think you're
from
right.
the Seattle area.
I think of Mother Love Bone. I think signed a major label, but then
then he passed. Yeah. And Andy Wood was Chris Cornell's roommate.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a weird history, but they had all that music written pretty much, and then Eddie Vedder just sang over it.
Yeah.
With Stone Temple Pilots, it was a little bit different. It was more organic, almost.
Agreed.
You know, it wasn't like they were looking for something. Of course, Wilan, he remembers that he had already started a band, you know, and he had this guy playing guitar and this drummer. He ran in. That's how he met, you know, DeLeo at the Black Flag deal. Right. But then they got together, and he joined the band. You know, and then the other dude fell off, the guitar player fell off, and they started auditioning people, and he was like, hey, man, my brother's really good.
Yeah, I heard that as well.
Mm-hmm. And so they brought in Dean.
Or read that as well.
Yeah. And
hear it.
Yeah. And it's funny because I guess Dean was a successful person at that point.
Yeah, he was a businessman, right?
It was weird, right? You look at him and you're like, okay.
No, he worked, I know wherever he worked, because I actually saw an interview with him where he was like, I told him I was quitting and joining a band, and they were like, whatever, get back to work, you know? And
yeah, he's like, no,
for real.
Well, that sounds like
so cool.
Yeah, that sounds like Kelly Deal too. Like Kelly Deal, I think, of course, of the Breeders, Kim's sister, they had formed the Breeders, and Tanya Donnelly was in the band at that point from Throwing Muses or whatnot. And she was leaving, and Kim was like, hey, what about my sister? And she was already like that too.
Right.
So she came in, and I think the video for Safari, you could see her. She's got like shoulder pads. She's got wearing almost like a pantsuit type of a deal. Yeah. And you're like, it's like hard rocking and then business afterwards. You know what I mean? But I thought that was really cool because, yeah, anything that I could absorb about the Stone Temple Pilots back in the day.
Right.
My first experience with them was, again, it was profound. And I'm going to say that for myself, because every summer I would go visit my grandpa and grandma and my cousin, in this little bitty podunk town, Perryton, Texas. This is where my dad's from. And, they had an alcove.
All right.
So my parents would give me like $20, right? And say, hey, do whatever you want to, right? First thing I'd do is go to alcove. And I looked through their tapes, and they had Stone Temple Pilots, and I was like, I like that song Sex Type Thing, you know? And thought I was cool. So I had my little tape deck. When I put it in, I didn't take it out, and I didn't stop listening to it for the entire 2 weeks I was there.
Damn.
I went to the pool listening to it.
Yeah. And
it was just out on repeat. I mean, it was over and over again. I came back to Amarillo a changed person.
Yeah.
I was beginning, this was kind of like the moniker for me to start maturing as far as like mentally, physically, whatever you might say. You know what I mean? Everything was just right there firing on all cylinders. It was great. And from then on out, I was 100% a fan. And always will be, because core. We could talk all about how they formed, we can talk about everything, but I want to talk about like the albums themselves.
I'm with that.
You down to talk about that?
Of course.
Because we
should talk about like their first iteration.
Yes. Yes.
Was as Mighty Joe Young.
Yeah.
And then I think it was actually while they were making
Core
that one of the producers or something said, "Hey, we found this bluesman that goes by Mighty Joe Young." I think he was out of Chicago, actually.
Yep.
And so they had to come up with a different name. And I guess they were just sitting around talking about how they liked the stickers they used to put on their bikes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the STP oil sticker or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's pure 70s.
Yeah. Early 80s, I'd say. Yeah, for sure. And because I think they met when they were in like 85.
Yeah.
But I don't know how old they were at the time or anything.
Oh, yeah. No.
But at any rate, so what was the first one they came up with? It was...
it was
something Temple Pirates.
Stereo Temple Pilots.
Stereo Temple Pirates. There was a really good one.
Shirley Temple's Pussy.
That's the one. But I think they led with Stereo Temple Pirates, and then somebody was like, that producer guy was like, "Yeah, I don't really like pirates" or something.
Yeah,
and he's like, "That's like, what about pilots?" And they're like, "Yeah, what with that?" And then somebody else, a manager or somebody, said Stone, or maybe it was a band member. I don't remember. But that's where they got Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah, yeah.
So from an STP sticker and just playing around with some words.
Well, yeah.
Which is how things work.
They were known as Swing before that.
Yes.
And Dean was like, fuck that. I'm not going to be part of a band called
I
Swing.
respect Dean for that.
Yeah. He's
I don't blame him a damn
He's
bit.
like, we're not going to be Swing.
If Sex Type Thing came on by Swing,
not the
it
same.
It doesn't matter how good the music is. I'm going to be like,
gonna suck ass.
Yeah, how? No. So no, I'm with that.
Well,
and then that's how we got
it. That's how they got Stone Temple Pilots, and then that record dropped. When that record dropped, it changed all kinds of stuff. The cover was awesome. You know, everything that you saw on that record, that was pure 100%, like removed from the grunge scene in a way, but they put the grunge stamp on it at the record, you know, company. You know, they actually made it the way it was, but it's an iconic kind of a image that you see.
For sure.
That's one thing that you see and you're like, damn, that's a great record. Every time you see it, you're like, oh man, that's awesome. So Core came out in September 29th of 1992.
Yes.
I think, you know, it was during that summer is I think when I bought it.
Right on.
So it'd have been June or July, you know, during the summer because I was there. And God, every song from beginning to end, like I said, it was like a freaking freight train. And it never let up all the way through it.
I think we spoke about this before, maybe on a quick cast or something. It's one of those albums. It's one of those albums that I would prefer to listen to it all the way through.
Yes.
You know?
You can't really, you can go into any one of them and listen to it, but you're already anticipating what's coming next or what was before. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like everything bleeds together on that record and you're 100% engulfed in it.
Right.
I'm going to glorify it so much, but at the same time, holy crap. What a record. Dead and Bloated. Didn't he sing through the guitar pickups?
Yes.
Something like that, right? And you are immediately like, what is he? And then, bam, they hit you 100%. The dun, 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 you know, everything freaking hits at that point. Then it doesn't stop.
Nope.
Because they were the masters of, you know, like the 5 minutes and under song.
Right.
But they didn't wear out the hooks.
Agreed.
You know, like, God, there's so many bands that wear out the hooks and wear out this. Because their song structure is something that I always studied playing music. And the way that they would have, and it was basic. What they did wasn't anything special. I guess they had like a verse, chorus, middle eight. And then chorus, and then that was it. You know, the way that they would structure it was so perfect for most of that stuff that everything came out great. Come on, Dead and Bloated, Sex Type Thing, and then you hit with Wicked Garden. Dang.
And that was a big song off of that album too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was part of the video generation.
Sex Type Thing was the first one. Then it was
Right.
Wicked Garden, and then you got Creep. You got Plush,
Yeah.
and then you got Creep.
Plush is so badass because what was it? I think it was so they dropped September '92. You said.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in '93 on Headbangers Ball where he did the first acoustic version of that song.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sorry, pardon me. But that kills.
Yeah, I remember watching it. So simple, so simple,
But his voice, dude, his voice carries that song.
He didn't need anything else. He just needed the accompaniment from Dean, and they just killed it.
Yeah.
They're unplugged. It was
And that was right
awesome.
after that, right?
Yeah.
I think that was in '93 as well.
Yeah, because the Unplugged was starting, and everybody was kind of doing everything that they did. Their Bowie cover was awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite Stone Temple Pilots songs is that Bowie cover. So, because it's so much different than,
Right.
and again, it still had that really, really like good, like everything.
Yeah.
It was just awesome. They were all over all the festivals.
I mean,
at that
Sweater
point.
in a rocking chair.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. It's my kind of show.
One of the very first songs that I ever learned on bass.
Okay.
Me and this one dude were playing, and there's only a handful of songs that I really worked on, but we worked on No Memory.
Okay.
And I don't know why. It was just something that we picked. So this dude was playing guitar, I was playing bass, and we had it like freaking great. It sounded good. I think I still have it on tape somewhere too. But I always remember looking up to Robert DeLeo thinking, man, if I could even achieve anywhere near what that guy's doing,
Yeah.
I will really feel accomplished. And then every time I would learn one of his licks, I'm like, oh my God. Playing Dead and Bloated or playing Sex Type Thing. You're like, oh my God. That's that's so easy. He didn't really overcomplicate a lot of stuff.
Right.
But I think, of course, Billy Cox going to be one of my top, but Robert DeLeo is probably my favorite bass player of all time.
Oh, okay.
Just because of just the sense that he has in that.
Yeah.
Because you listen to the way that they structure their music too, it is like a Zeppelin. They because the rhythm and the or the guitar and the bass are really following the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Except for, you listen.
Just something, yeah.
Well, if you listen to John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page,
Yeah.
they really mirror a lot of the same stuff that they play.
Agreed.
And that's what kind of draws you into it. They do the same thing with Stone Temple Pilots, but at that same time, you have the extra little bit, just like you would with Geezer Butler.
Right.
All
I'm with
those,
you now.
yeah,
I'm with
all
you.
those dudes would kind of throw in just a few little extra things to cover that melody end,
Right.
And then, you have Eric Kretz, which Eric Kretz's drumming was just strong.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't think you could ever really stop that dude.
Yeah.
And he just looks like a pirate. You know what I mean?
Maybe that's why they were going to do the stereo Temple Pirates.
Yeah.
Now, he seemed very, in all the interviews, he seemed like a good guy. Like, all of them seemed really good guys. Obviously, Scott had some issues, and we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Because Plush, Eric Kretz helped write in a hot tub.
Yes. I love the interview with that because he's like, what's wrong with two men being in a hot tub together? And the girl's like, nothing with those two. And I was like, dang.
You know how many times I watched that MTV documentary? I recorded it.
Nice.
I used to watch it, oh my God, 3 or 4 times in a row. I had friends that come over and I'm like, yeah, let's watch this. And then whenever I was in my first real band, we watched it all the time. It was just so cool. Yeah. Creep. Come on.
Yeah, Creep, that's a major song as well. I don't know if did we mention Sin? because I love that song.
That is a great song. This is the longest one on the record?
It is.
No, Where the River Goes is the longest.
Oh, yeah. That's probably, they're about the same.
Yeah,
I
Sin.
love that song too. But
Oh my God, yeah. Some of their...
We'll get into that, I guess.
Yeah. So
Usually, whatever.
Yeah, No Memory, and then you got Sin, because No Memory just kind of leads you into that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's part of the same song.
It does.
And it's just the way that it kind of is ominous. And then just the raw power of it and the thickness of the riffs.
That's fair.
Yeah, we're just fantastic, you know. Then you got Naked Sunday. Then you got Creep. And for the video, didn't they film at Harry Houdini's house?
Yes, I think that is the case.
Yeah, Piece of Pie, Plush, Wet My Bed.
Actually, I'll be honest. This is probably my favorite portion of this album is Wet My Bed to Cracker Man and then Where the River Goes. Like those right in a row. I mean, the whole album's good and I love there's not a song on this album that I don't like.
No.
So
yeah.
I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, like I said before, like this is the album that if I make a record with anybody, I use this as a model.
Sure.
As far as like, okay, so you have Dead and Bloated, Sex Type Thing, Wicked Garden. That's like 1, 2, 3. And then you hit with No Memories. So it kind of slows you down a little bit. So you're not it's just not straight. It's not a linear kind of a power. Right. You have that instrumental, you know, and then you get Sin, which Sin is like the end of the first side, pretty much. You know, that's how I think that's what it was like on, maybe the tape. I don't remember.
I think that's right.
Yeah. And then you got Naked Sunday, right?
Right.
So it kind of, it's still building back up because that second side is going to freaking powerhouse you as soon as you get past Creep, right? Yeah. So it kind of, you have that middle section. And I even, whenever I was making set lists for the bands and things like that, I was always thinking about, okay, how do we put the power in there? And how do we figure this out? And that was always the model for it. Nice. So I would tell every band member that I had, I'm like, all right, we got to hit them 1, 2, 3. We got to slow down a little bit. Then we got to hit them again. Right. And then our third song should probably be one of our best ones. And then we need to put one of our best ones. Cause if you listen to the Dangerous Days record, I purposefully planned it to put one of the songs at this one point to kind of make it feel like that. Nice. Which is kind of weird and make it feel like this record because it does end great. The way that this does, you know, cause you come back and you have Cracker Man. Bam. Yeah. Cracker Man is such an awesome fucking song.
Yes, it is. And in Wet My Bed, you can actually, that part where, they say, now what? That's actually a producer that walked in the room.
Yeah.
How crazy.
Yeah. So, okay, now what? So, yeah.
Get some fucking Cracker Man.
Oh, man. That song is one of the most rocking on the whole record, too.
Yeah, agreed.
And it wraps it up with Where the River Goes. And that is a great vocal performance. It's a great guitar performance. It's a great bass performance, drum performance, everything.
It's a great performance is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, pretty much. There's not one thing that stands out. And now if you look at the band, you listen to the songs, there's not one piece of this that is like lacking.
Agreed.
When it comes to the instrumentation, when it comes to the lyrics, when it comes to the singing, when it comes to any facet of this band on this record, you can't touch this shit.
Agreed.
You can't, you know?
And while we're on this album, there, like Sex Type Thing got a lot of pushback. And because it's a dark song and, a lot of people were like, they had to explain, like, yeah, he got in that character for that song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is not uncommon in music, you know?
And plus he had lived it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he had seen and been around that. And then whenever you put that into context, the 20 years after this one came out, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Whenever
we didn't know that at the time.
No. And this, you know, I think he's tried heroin pretty much about this time too. He wasn't really doing it until like they started really getting a lot more money.
Yeah.
He was always a drinker, you
Sure.
know, pothead, shit like that, but nothing really heavy until he got up kind of to this level.
Yeah.
Started bringing
that's
a
when
lot
it
of money.
happens.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, one of the very,
Unfortunately.
yeah, oh
Of
yeah.
course.
My neighbor across the street, BJ, he lived right across the street from me. We would hang out all the time. The very first time I got high was with BJ. And we listened to this record over and over and over again too, and then watched like Private Benjamin. I don't know. It was just one of those deals where, and every time we would get high, he'd put it on the hi-fi, right? Because his mom was always, you know, kind of hanging out.
Right.
She was never really there, which was cool, just for our, you know,
Sure.
for what we were doing.
I totally understand.
Yeah, and
I think we all had that place where we hung out where there wasn't adults.
yeah, and we'd go out on the back porch, you know, and we'd freaking smoke out of this whistle, which I fucking hate whistles. Have you ever smoked out of a whistle? You know, they're
I
the
don't
little
know
bitty
what that
pipes.
means.
They're about this big. They look like a bullet.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And then you kind of put the bullet in there and you suck it. Oh my God. And it's got the little rubber piece, but it always burns your fucking lips. But me and BJ, we had that, I don't know, that connection with the fucking music.
Right.
When it came to that, because we were both like, man, Stone Temple Pilots is the best, you know. And then one of my other friends, Terry, he did the same thing. He was really into Stone Temple Pilots too. All three of us were, you know, and that was before I really started hanging out, I think, with Terry at that point. Oh man, but that was a tie that binded everybody.
100%.
with
Like, I
STP.
feel like my friends were definitely Stone Temple Pilots. You know, like my best friend, we were,
Yeah.
you know. But I mean, we were really musically oriented anyways. We
Right,
were listening to a lot of music.
Right.
You know. But it was the greats back then, you know, like when they were coming out, Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden,
Pearl Jam.
Alice in Chains, Nirvana. You know what I mean? That was just such a period where you got like all this awesomeness, regardless of where it came from or whatever. You know, like everybody tried to lump everything in with Seattle.
Oh my God, yes.
And I know a lot of those bands that I just mentioned were from Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they went there, and if you've ever seen the movie Hype,
Yeah.
oh my God, they're all Ponzi and Posey, you know. There's so fucking many things were going on up there. But again, they were so removed from that, being in San Diego,
Right.
you know. And then, you know, you always see everybody making fun of them or saying something about them. Even Beavis and Butthead are like, you know, they
Didn't they do the one where
it was for what was the actual song? It was for Plush. I think they were doing the video over it. I always loved that about Beavis and Butthead.
yeah.
Because they would have those songs going on.
Depeche Mode's French for we're wussies. Yeah, I can't remember what they said, but I remember it was David Spade, I think, on SNL was like, Stone Temple Pilots did blah, blah, blah. And he was like, they were better, or like, I remember them last time when they were Pearl Jam.
Yeah, come on, dude.
Get out of here, dick.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But he was a dick at that point. So, I mean, you have the very first record that came out and just murdered everybody, I think.
Murdered.
I think that they were on the other side of the spectrum when it came to the grunge part of it, but they were lumped into the same category.
I agree.
But they didn't really back down, you know, because what they did is they were like, wait a minute, let's build off of what we have and kind of woodshed a little bit and then hit them again. Because, okay, so you always have your sophomore slump. Most bands really, if they make it past part, you know, number 2, they're going to do really well.
Yeah.
You know, Weezer, you know, Pinkerton, one of the greatest records of all time. But 100% nobody liked it. When I found it, I was like, oh my God, he wrote this for me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But Purple really had a head start because of The Crow.
Yeah. Well, they did this song. They did
this on the Unplugged.
On the Unplugged, Big Empty.
Yeah.
And then it was like the driving song from The Crow.
Oh my God!
Which,
yeah.
I mean, the Crow movie in and of itself was a phenomenon at the time. The music, that album's ridiculously good. If you've ever seen if you've ever listened to our top 5 soundtracks,
yeah, that's on there.
Yeah,
for everybody.
I think so.
This record too was such another powerhouse too. This is the one that I go back to a lot.
Well, and this was their number 2 album, so this was their, hey, we're free.
Yeah.
You know, we can do what we want to do now.
And it seemed like they were toning their music in a different way.
Definitely.
Because they had that really driving hard rock with Core. And then they pick up Purple. And it was like, okay, we're going to have a little bit slower songs in it. Somewhat. But they're still going to have that power.
You're 100% right. But I think they bridge you into it pretty nicely by starting out with Meat Plow. You know what I mean? Like, so it's almost like a continuation of that style of music almost.
Yeah.
To a degree.
No, I understand 100% what you're saying too, because really it was kind of like that. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, this is Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah.
But then you go into some of the songs
it's almost like a little bit of a descent, because you go Meat Plow, Vaseline, Loungefly, and then into Interstate Love Song. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So
you'll look at the setup of this record too.
Very similar to what you were saying, just a little more. Well, and it wasn't so much that it was slower or anything like that. It was just different. You know what I mean? Like Loungefly, maybe. Vaseline's kind of its own thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It kind of came out of nowhere.
But it was still, you know.
Well, I remember this next year, whenever my funny anecdote for this one. So it was my very last baseball game of my entire life, right? We were going to go to the Lake Foss in Oklahoma, right? And so my buddy Adam was there, and my parents were there, and we were on some losing team. You know, they never let me play. I fucking hated it. And
great baseball experience for Brock.
Yeah, there's about 2-3 good years in there.
That's okay.
Yeah, and so I think before we got to Foss Lake, we bought these tapes. But so I took a pitch, right, hit it straight to the first baseman, and the guy that was umping that night he was an asshole. He really was. He threw people out all the time.
Wow.
Right. Kids. What? So my dumb ass, right, and my smart ass at that point, I wanted to go.
Right.
I was like, I don't want to fucking play this game. We're going to fucking lose. Screw it. So I hit it line drive straight to that dude, and I was like, shit. So I threw my bat, right, to the dugout, right, while I was walking. He was like, hey, I'm warning you. So I was like... So I kind of looked around, kind of sat there, and I grabbed my helmet, you know, and I acted like I was going to do it, but I didn't. And then I took 2 more steps and actually did it. And the freaking thing bounced like, I don't know, 20 feet in the air. And he was like, that's it, you're gone. I was like, later.
Well, I think that's an awesome story.
Yes.
But I think the listeners will want to know, did you still get a free snow cone?
Nope. We never got free snow cones. You had to pay for that shit at NRC. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Not in baseball teams you get free?
No. Yeah, you never got
shit. That's the only reason I played baseball.
but we stopped at a Walmart, I think, in, Elk City or some shit like that. And I bought Soundgarden.
Okay.
And my buddy bought Stone Temple Pilots, right?
Nice.
Purple. So we listened to the Pilots, and we were like, oh my God, this is awesome. We listened to Soundgarden and was like, yeah, but the Pilots. And he was like, you know what? I like that Soundgarden better. I was like, I'll trade you. So we traded that night, and I had that tape, and I was like, yeah. It's so good. We listened to it over and over and over again too.
Yeah.
We would drive my dad's Bronco kind of up the hill while everybody was down there partying, and we'd go smoke cigarettes and shit. Be like, yeah. Loved it. Because this one kind of fucking gets you.
Oh, for sure.
But my secondary story for that was funny because my buddy BJ, he had done something. I don't know. I was a kid. I was like, "Fuck you! I don't want to be your friend no more."
Fair.
And he lived across the street, right? I'm a dick. So he comes over and he knocks on the door and he's like, "Yo, look what I just got!" and shows me the CD. I'm like, "Ah, cool. Later." And I shut the door like a fucking asshole.
Yeah,
but I remember he was just like,
Brock, it's okay.
It was too, because I wasn't cool. But back to the record. Andy Warhol is the song. That's the one on the single, because they had a single for what was it? Vaseline, maybe?
Probably.
And it had like 3 songs that were on the, because they never released their Unplugged.
Right.
They only put it on this single. So it had like 4 songs from it. But Andy Warhol was the song that I think is one of my absolute favorites of theirs.
Right on.
And that's the Bowie cover.
No, thank you for listening, of course. I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
So with that, peace.
Right? You look at him and you're like,
Or
okay.
no, he worked. I know wherever he worked, because I actually saw an interview with him where he was like, I told him I was quitting and joining a band, and they were like, whatever, get back to work, you know? And
Yeah, he's like, no.
no, for real.
Well, that sounds
Which
like
is so cool.
Yeah, that sounds like Kelly Deal too.